I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome to another episode of Ohio Politics Explained. Well, it's almost over. Voters are heading to the polls to choose the next president and decide Ohio races with big implications for the state and country. We could also have a new process for redistricting when Tuesday's election is said and done. Joining me today to preview what's to come is Anthony Shoemaker.
Hey, Haley. Almost election day.
We're almost there. So the biggest thing on the ballot, of course, is the presidential race between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But we're not expecting much excitement on that front in Ohio. Where things will get interesting is the race between Senator Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno. You've seen the ads for months now. Outside groups have spent almost $500 million, and polls show Brown and Moreno are tied. So I'm not lying when I say I have no clue what's going to happen.
Yeah, it is an unpredictable race. The ads have been relentless on television, online. You know, the Trafalgar poll came out, shows it like a 1-point race with Brown slightly up, but that's within the margin of error. It really is an unpredictable race. Brown has never been on the ballot the same day as Donald Trump. The last time Brown was on the ballot with the president was with Obama in 2012, so he was able to kind of, ride along with the success Obama had in the state. He doesn't have that to help him this time.
Yeah, and one of Brown's selling points has been that in past elections, he's been able to appeal to independents and even some Republicans because he focuses a lot on issues that affect the working class. But, we've seen Democrats lose steam in areas like the Mahoning Valley. A lot of those voters now are Trump supporters. And it's hard to say whether people are going to make that Brown-Trump split when they're both on the ballot right next to each other.
Yeah, and it's very clear from Brown's ads anyway that those are the voters he's going after. Those Trump voters that might vote for a Democratic senator. And the polling shows that there are some out there. We did see like a split in 2022, in the governor race and the Senate race with Tim Ryan that, there were DeWine Ryan voters that year. So Brown is hoping there's Trump Brown voters this year. And the closer Harris can get to Trump, that probably helps Sherrod Brown.
Yeah, you mentioned that Trafalgar poll, which had Harris trailing Trump by about 6 points. And we do expect Trump to win Ohio for a third time. There's really no reason to think otherwise. But the margin by which he wins could affect Moreno, and Moreno's ability to kind of ride Trump's coattails.
Yeah, Trump won in 2016 and 2020 by around 8. So if Harris can get him down to 6, that can have a substantial impact for the Brown-Moreno race. If for some reason Trump wins by more than 8, it's hard to see Brown being able to pull it off.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch this last week of the campaign play out. As our listeners well know, this is being watched nationally, and Republicans especially are really hoping to grab Ohio's seat to help expand a potential Senate majority. We had Donald Trump Jr. in town earlier this week, Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator Tim Scott's going to be in Ohio, as is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. So the national interest in this race is very clear, not only from the ads and the money, but just the people that you're seeing come in to help Moreno. And then with Brown, we've seen Raphael Warnock from Georgia come in. So it's just a lot of eyes on us.
Yeah, and it sounds like former President Obama is doing some robocalling for Brown in the final push.
Now, Brown isn't the only Ohio Democrat fighting for his job. Ohio Supreme Court Justices Melody Stewart and Michael Donnelly are running to keep their seats. And Stewart is actually facing a fellow justice, Republican Joe Deters. The third court race on Tuesday's ballot is between two judges who are trying to win an open seat. These are getting less attention than the Senate race, but the stakes are quite high in these court races.
The stakes are quite high, and money is starting to flow into this race. Right now, the Republicans have a 4-3 majority. If they win all three of these races, they could take that up to 6-1. If the Democrats were to get lucky, I guess they could flip it to 4-3 in their favor. That's not likely. So, party labels will be on the ballot this time, and that will have an impact on the race as well. For people, voting for Donald Trump, will they probably vote for the three Republican Supreme Court candidates as well?
And of course, the Supreme Court deals with a lot of different issues. We all poked fun at the boneless chicken wing case earlier this year, but justices hear cases on taxes, public records, things like that. The court is also no doubt going to be hearing lawsuits over the state abortion laws and to what extent those hold up under the Abortion Rights Amendment passed last year, which, we've seen talked about by a lot of Democrats and groups supporting the candidates, because of campaigning rules with Supreme Court justices. You're not going to hear them talk about where they stand on abortion rights, but that is going to be a big thing that comes before the court.
Yeah, I mean, with all the, after you had the abortion amendment pass in last year, now it's kind of like what's happening to all of those abortion laws that are going to go before the court. It's extremely rare, to have Deters and Stewart running against each other, to have two sitting justices at the same time. Deters didn't want to run again to fill out the remainder of the term he already had. So instead, he decided to challenge a sitting justice, which is pretty rare.
And if they're able to sweep these elections, to your point earlier, it gives Republicans on the court a massive majority.
Yeah. And if Sherrod Brown was to lose the Senate race, then Supreme Court Justice Jennifer Brunner would end up being the only Democrat in statewide office at the end of the day.
Now, let's turn to issue 1 on the ballot. The proposed amendment would create an independent commission to draw congressional and state house districts. Under the current process, elected officials handle that task. Groups for and against the issue say they want to stop gerrymandering. The yard signs are super confusing. And we know gerrymandering is unpopular among voters kind of in general. How do you see this shaking out?
Yeah, I mean, polling, there hasn't been a whole lot of polling on this, but, in general, the marketing has been kind of from the yes side, take the politicians out of drawing the districts. And I think that message does sell across party lines. The no side is now starting to advertise with President Trump involved in issue 1, saying President Trump is telling you to vote no on issue 1. So we'll see what kind of weight that carries because, Republicans in the state who may not, be reading the 1,000-word ballot language will maybe that Trump endorsement against issue 1 will have a huge impact. I don't know.
And regarding the ballot language, I am curious to what extent that's going to affect anything because proponents of issue 1 are really mad about the ballot language. They think it misrepresents the amendment and, the language was approved by Republicans who are opposed to the amendment. And there's language in there about requiring a commission to gerrymander maps and things like that, which is not an accurate reflection of what would actually happen. So it's, I don't know if, I voted the other day and there's a lot of scrolling you have to do to get through.
Yes, there is.
The ballot language. So, I would assume a lot of people do their homework beforehand, but
my polling place had it printed out giant on a wall there. I was like, who on earth would stand there and read the whole thing? But, I don't know that many people read all the ballot language, and the money spent on the race has been very lopsided. The yes side has raised about $40 million since the start of the campaign last year, and the no side is at less than $6 million. So the money advantage is definitely behind the supporters of issue 1.
I want to wrap up this episode by briefly talking about Congress. Democrats are hoping to gain control of the U.S. House, which Republicans are hanging on to by a thread. 2 seats in Ohio are part of that equation. The 9th Congressional District, held by Representative Marcy Kaptur, and the 13th around Akron, represented by Amelia Sykes. How are things looking at this point for Kaptur and Sykes?
Yeah, I mean, the Sykes race is Sykes is running against Kevin Coughlin. That's kind of viewed as a 50-50 race. There's been some, I think it was the crystal ball kind of moved Kaptur's race to be a little bit safer for her, where she's running against Derek Merrin up in the far northwestern corner of the state around Toledo. But, when you're dealing with a single digit majority, these 2 races will definitely matter in the final equation about whether or not Democrats can take the House back.
I am curious about the 9th especially and how that's going to turn out because Kaptur's district is a lot more Republican than it used to be, and she ran with these boundaries in 2022, but her opponent was not it. He had a lot of issues, and Republicans basically abandoned him at the 9th hour. That's not the case with Marin. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson, I think, was just in Ohio campaigning for Marin, and there's a lot of Republican money behind him. So it'll be interesting to see if she can hang on. She's, of course, the longest serving woman in Congress, and there's a lot of knowledge there.
She has been in office since 1983. But also, like Senator Brown, she has Donald Trump on the ballot the same day with this new, more Republican district. So it's definitely the biggest challenge she's had.
A few reminders before you go. Early voting ends Sunday. Absentee ballots returned by mail must be postmarked by Monday and received by November 9th to be counted. Polls are open Tuesday from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Happy voting. Ohio Politics Explained is brought to you by the USA Today Network Ohio Bureau. You can check us out on X, formerly known as Twitter, @Ohio Explained.